Okay, understanding Palantir's sticky business model. Now, I was watching a video from another finance YouTuber. I'm going to leave the video in the description because I saw his analysis on this and it kind of inspired me to make my own video on this because I thought this was just like phenomenal analysis. And I also thought that the argument made a lot of sense. And I wanted to kind of expand and go deeper on the argument here. So one of the reasons I'm really bullish on Palantir as a company, and one of the reasons I've put 25,000 into the company, is because part of what makes a software as a service or a SaaS offering unique is its ability to reduce churn. Now, what is churn? Churn is when you sign up for a product and then you realize eventually that you're not going to use the product that much. So maybe use it for like a month, maybe a couple months, and then you ultimately stop using the product, right? So you get out of the subscription. Most companies are pretty good at locking you into only like a 1 month subscription, or like not locking you in at all and letting you cancel whenever. I've had some experiences with some software as a service companies that will lock you in their terms of service for like a year without you knowing. And then you get a $970 charge on your credit card and you're like, what is this? We all go through it, but most companies, they let you just get out of it, right, as soon as you want. So it's very easy for consumers in today's economy to just cancel out of things. You think of something like Spotify, right? If you're not satisfied with it, you just stop and you don't pay $10 a month anymore, right? Now, Spotify is not really a SaaS service because it's not really software as a service, but it's a subscription business model, right? You're paying for a form of content and you're paying because you enjoy that content. Something like Calendly, which is I think like a $3 billion company now, is one of those software as a service businesses, right? It is, you give a service, which is the calendar link and the scheduling suite of services that their software provides. And I think you pay like $12-13 a month. And when you don't want it, you churn. Software services or SaaS businesses survive by reducing their churn, right? Because if you have more churn, that means your product isn't valuable enough for people to continue using it. Another example to think about is Canva. So Canva is a design photo editing app. And I actually was on their pro model for like 7-8 months. And then I stopped using their pro model because I realized their free model had pretty much everything I wanted. So that is when you can kind of realize that like, there are certain tiers to companies being effective and certain tiers for companies not being effective. And you just have to, or companies have to find the right fit for a price tier that is valuable enough for people not to quit, but meaningful enough for people to stay for the long term. How does this relate to Palantir? Palantir is a SaaS business, right? It is a SaaS service at the end of the day. They are providing a software, and that software has high margins like most SaaS companies do, because once you make the software, your costs are pretty much done outside of marketing and customer and retention and sales and all that stuff. But the core product is done. Right now, you just have to sell it. Keeping people hooked on the product is ultimately what's going to allow the product to make money in the long term, right? So like when you have a bad quarter, which is going to be inevitable for any company, and they don't get as many clients as was expected from Wall Street, the question is, did you retain the current clients you had? And were they able to maybe upsell them and maybe able to at least keep that revenue coming into the bank? Now, why is this important for Palantir? The reason this is important is because I believe they have a very sticky product. And this was the analysis I was watching that I wanted to do a deeper dive on this video, which is their software is going into entire organizations and it is permeating the organization to the point where all the data coming into that organization is now being sort of, I guess you could say, running through the toll booth that is the Palantir software. If that's the case, if you're an organization that makes complex business decisions and you have a ton of software and data, a ton of data you need to synthesize with software, if you've picked a company that is able to do that, and do it effectively and do it really well, which is why Palantir is the company that it is today, you're not going to stop using that product, right? It just doesn't make any sense, right? Why would you stop using that product if you're getting value from it? And especially because if data is sort of the new oil and new gold, and every company needs to consistently synthesize the data that they're getting, you're going to have some company that is going to have to deal with your data. And it's either going to be Palantir or a product that's likely not as good as Palantir. Why? Because Palantir developed its core product for 17 years and was able to experiment with the government for 17 years before it went super commercial. So you're talking about a company that has probably first in class, or at least top 3 of offerings when it comes to artificial intelligence, data analyzation, and synthesization. And you're entering organizations that are going to need to synthesize data for the next 5, 10, 20, 25 years. And then you're talking about a company that hasn't even hit its like growth peak in terms of commercial, right? They're doing well in the governmental sector, but they haven't really hit their growth peak when it comes to commercial. So as you start allocating the software to very large corporations and mid-sized businesses, and you're able to sell them on the idea, implement the idea, and then they're able to get valuable business outcomes from it, that is going to be a recurring revenue model that is going to last for a very long time, especially when I believe the average client was in Q3 was worth like $10 million to them. I don't know exactly if that's correct, but they only got 34 clients, and each of those clients was worth upwards in the high millions, which is pretty amazing, right? When you're doing business with these mega large corporations, that they're willing to pay you that much money for your software to actually be implemented into their organization. That matters a lot for Palantir. I mean, that's really important, because if you're talking about a SaaS product going into organizations and eventually the organization doesn't use it, you're losing key clients. And when you're talking about the government that's using Palantir and then all these other corporations that are beginning to use Palantir, once the platform is in, here's the kicker, it's really hard to get out of it, right? It's kind of like if you're using Slack for your entire company messaging protocols, you wouldn't switch to like Discord or something, right? It doesn't make any sense. Even though Discord might be the better way to do it for whatever reason in that business, or like Microsoft Teams or whatever, you're going to stick with Slack, right? Slack has a ton of competitors, but they got product market fit early, and they penetrated organizations early, which means they were able to ultimately make it a hassle for organizations to get rid of Slack, because like, why would you do that if all of your communications is happening through this one protocol? That's what's going to happen with Palantir. You know, when they're partnering with these organizations and these committees, and they're also doing this crypto stuff, it's like, it's very difficult to find another messaging app that is able to accelerate the efficiency and productivity of the company, which is what Slack did, right? They got rid of email and they made it a lot more easier and switched the entire business onto something else. So the point that I'm trying to get at is, because Palantir has such a sticky business model and such a wide grasp over the organization that it's implemented in, it has a lot of potential to ultimately keep those clients and retain those clients for the long term, which equals a lot more money. And, you know, the more clients that are using something, the more they tell other clients about it. And it just becomes a snowball effect to the point where it becomes really big, which is ultimately what happened with Slack. So I think that the stickiness of the product is going to be one of the key differentiating variables for the product and its competitors over the next 10, 15 years. And I think that's going to result in a higher share price. I think, you know, that's going to lead Palantir to go from a $22 stock one day to a $100, $150 stock. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are my analysis. Let me know if you guys have any comments or ideas, if you agree, if you think the product is sticky or you don't. Any suggestions for videos, please leave them down in the comments. I do have a startup. Don't want to plug it too much, but if you guys want to check out my startup, that's also in the description. Would appreciate any support at all. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.